Support for this episode comes from Signature Bank.
Hey, this is Gary Head at Signature Bank of Arkansas. We founded Signature Bank in 2005 with local ownership to serve our communities with the best bankers with the most authority to do business. We have succeeded in growing our bank to over $875 million in assets. We have locations in Bentonville, Rogers, Springdale, Fayetteville, Brinkley, and we have recently expanded to Harrison and Jonesboro. We have 176 teammates in climbing. Our teammates love our communities and the customers that we serve. We're always here to serve and eager to do so. As Chairman and CEO, I welcome your call to have the opportunity to serve you. Please call 479-684-3700 or visit online at signature.bank and tell them that you heard about us at I Am Northwest Arkansas. Signature Bank of Arkansas is a member of the FDIC and an equal housing lender.
It's time for another episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas, the podcast covering the intersection of business, culture, entrepreneurship, and life in general here in the Ozarks. Whether you are considering a move to this area or trying to learn more about the place you call home, we've got something special for you. Without further ado, here's our fearless host, Randy Wilburn.
Hey folks, and welcome to another episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas. I'm your host, Randy Wilburn, and I'm as excited as always to be with you. Today is a special day. It is actually the 200th episode of the podcast. I know. You want to clap. It's all good. I appreciate the love. But yes, we have finally recorded our 200th episode of the podcast. And I couldn't be more excited about this. It happens as at the time of recording this, it happens to be right about the day after Christmas of 2022. So whether you're listening to this this day or you're listening to this sometime in the future, I appreciate you joining us for this special episode. Listen, I went back and forth for the longest time trying to figure out what I would do to make this special. Originally, I was going to take snippets from a bunch of episodes and share them, and I thought, everybody kind of does that. And I said, what would separate this from every other episode that I've done? And I thought the simplest way that I could do that would be to highlight what this podcast has meant to me. And I'm going to basically tell a story that gives you a better understanding of what I see this podcast representing, both today, what it represented for me when I started, and now what I believe it will represent in the future. And so I don't know, when you're listening to this, so this might be something that is very good for you to hear, but I figured I would share it. And it's a story that I heard many years ago, and it was written by a man named Russell Conwell. And the story is called Acres of Diamonds. And it originates back in 1869 when Russell Conwell heard it from an Arab guide while traveling along the Euphrates River in the Middle East. The story inspired Conwell so much that he began sharing it with others who were also inspired. Soon after this, Conwell began telling the story to larger and larger audiences, eventually using the income that he received from his speeches to found and establish Temple University. True story. A lot of people don't know how Temple started. This is how it started. By the time he passed away in 1925, he'd delivered his Acres of Diamonds speech over 6,000 times. The story is about an African farmer who'd heard about other farmers who had made millions of dollars by discovering diamond mines. These stories got the farmer so excited that he could hardly wait to sell his own farm and go prospecting for diamonds himself. Enthused by the idea of becoming an instant millionaire, he sold his farm and began searching for diamond mines. Well, He ended up spending the rest of his life wandering around the African continent searching for these elusive diamond mines to no avail. It seems this farmer wasn't as lucky as the others he'd heard about, and eventually he got tired and depressed. The farmer ultimately threw himself into the sea and drowned to death. Meanwhile, the man who had brought this farm happened to be crossing a small stream on his property one afternoon. And just to be clarified, that other farmer that we talked about that threw himself into the sea ended up selling his farm to another man. This is this other man's story now. The man who owned the property that the other man sold so that he could go off and find these diamonds was walking across a small stream on his property one afternoon when suddenly a bright glimmer of colorful light caught his eye. It was coming from the bottom of the stream. So he bent down to see what it was. He reached into the water and picked up a stone. It was a fairly large stone, bright and beautiful. He paused for a moment and held it up, admiring it as it shined and glimmered against the sunlight. Then he took the stone home and placed it on the mantle over his fireplace as a decoration of sorts, not giving much thought to it. Several weeks later, a friend of his came by to visit. The glimmering stone over the fireplace caught his eyes, so he picked it up to get a closer look. As he felt the weight of the stone in his hand, he was in absolute shock. He looked up at his farmer friend and said, "Do you have any idea what this is?" So the farmer replied, "No, I found it a while back and thought it was just a nice piece of crystal." The visitor paused and said, "You have found one of the largest diamonds ever discovered." I don't know. I guess this guy thought he was a diamond expert, but that was essentially what he said. The farmer had a hard time believing this. He loves his friend, but wasn't sure that he was truly accurate. He told his friend, he said, "Listen, that creek is full of those stones, just like that one. Not all as large as the one on the mantle, but the stones were sprinkled generously throughout the bottom of the stream right here on my property." The farm that the first farmer had sold so that he might go out and find a diamond mine turned out to be one of the most productive diamond mines on the entire African continent. The first farmer had owned free and clear acres of diamonds, but he had sold them for practically nothing in order to look for them elsewhere. So when I first heard this story, it blew me away. The moral of this story is pretty clear for most of us. And I'd love in the comments for you to let me know what you think about the moral of the story. But the bottom line is that if that first farmer had only taken the time to study and prepare himself to learn what diamonds look like in their rough state and to thoroughly explore the property he had before looking elsewhere, all of his wildest dreams would have come true. The thing about this story that so profoundly affected millions of people is the idea that each of us is, at this very moment, standing in the middle of our own acres of diamonds. If we only had the wisdom and patience to intelligently, effectively, and thoroughly explore the line of work in which we're currently engaged, to more fully explore ourselves, we'd be much more likely to find the health, wealth, and happiness that so many of us around the world are looking for. So before you go running off to what you think are greener pastures, make sure that your own is not just as green or perhaps even greener. It has been said that if the other guy's pasture appears to be greener than ours, it's quite possible that it's getting better care. Besides, while you're looking at other pastures, other people are looking at yours. Some people see someone succeeding in their line of work, whatever it may be, and say something along the lines of, "Boy, I've got to get into that business." That's just crazy talk. There's just as much opportunity in one business as there is in another. I could say the same for a profession. If you're willing to dig for those diamonds, if you're willing to stop comparing yourself to others, if you're willing to stop playing copycat, if you're willing to start thinking more creatively, if you're willing to start working harder and smarter, if you're willing to do these things, you can uncover your own diamonds right there where you are. It's there. Trust me, it's there. And ultimately, it's your job to find it. I've heard this said over and over again, is that we don't recognize or learn how to mine the diamonds that are in our own backyards. And I've said that comment a multiple of times to people that would listen. We don't realize how valuable what we have in our own backyard. We need to take stock of it. And this story I love because to me, it is truly appropriate for Northwest Arkansas. There are tons of diamonds here in Northwest Arkansas. We need to be really mindful of that. And we need to be willing to mine what's right in our own backyard. I know a lot of you that are here, maybe thinking about moving to other places, and that's fine. Maybe your job will take you to another place. But while you're here in Northwest Arkansas, make the most of it. It's not by accident that they call this the natural state. It's the natural state because there actually are diamonds in the ground. And if nothing else, Northwest Arkansas has served as a great example of the diamonds that are in the ground. Sam Walton saw it when he first started Walmart. J.B. Hunt saw it when he first started J.B. Hunt. Tyson saw it when he started his chicken farm, or when he started Tyson. You get the idea. Each of these individuals and so many others, Charu Thomas, when she founded Ox, all of these amazing people, Ben Clark, when he took over and started running Be Unlimited, they all found their own diamonds in their own backyard and continue to refine those diamonds and continue to look for more. Each and every new day that life brings you is another opportunity for you to unearth the diamonds that are right there in your own backyard. So I wanted to share this story because I thought it's one of my favorite stories. It's a story that was used to actually build a university that's still standing to this day. Temple University is a well-respected college in the city of Philadelphia. And Russell Conwell clearly could tell a story. Stories matter. That's why I do this podcast on a regular basis. Without doing this podcast, I would not be where I am today. Not that I have a million diamonds. I do. Each of those diamonds is represented by the people that I've actually had on this podcast, by the organizations that I've had on this podcast, each and every one of them. So at this count, if you were to use that logic, I have like 200 plus diamonds in my backyard, but they represent the people that I built relationships with through this podcast. They represent the stories that I've been allowed to tell. I've been entrusted with stories of individuals that have done amazing things here in Northwest Arkansas and beyond. And I've been entrusted with stories of organizations that have started to benefit the people of Northwest Arkansas and beyond. And so I am 100% thankful for the opportunity that I've been given, that I've been entrusted as a steward to tell these stories here in Northwest Arkansas, to encourage people to come to Northwest Arkansas, right? Because that's the whole idea behind I Am Northwest Arkansas. I want more people that look like me to come here, but I want more people to come here regardless. I don't care what hue you are, be you white, brown, yellow, you name it. I want you coming to Northwest Arkansas. I want you to consider this place as fertile ground for you to find your own acres of diamonds. So many people are already finding them right here in Northwest Arkansas. Why not you? So if you are listening to this and have been listening to this podcast for a while and have been considering coming to Northwest Arkansas, but we're still on the fence, why don't you let this story serve as that nudge over the fence to come on in? The water's great. Come check us out here in Northwest Arkansas. Come spend some time with us. Learn about the hospitality here. Learn about the fact that people will bend over backwards to give you the shirt off their back. I really want to encourage you to come see for yourself what Northwest Arkansas is all about. And for those of you that are already here, you know this. I'm just telling you something that you probably already know. Now, if you're somebody that's here and you're thinking about leaving, whether it's due to work or you think that there are better opportunities elsewhere, listen, I get it. I totally understand it. I have moved all over the world. But there's something about this place, and I can't quite put my finger on it, that makes it special. We're in the middle of the country. There are a lot of challenges on both of the coasts. Of course, we have our own political issues to deal with, right? So there's some partisan challenges as far as that's concerned. But yet and still, we have to worry about ourselves first, and we have to take care of other people as well. Right? Because if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. I've told this story a million times, and you hear it every time you get on a plane. Put the oxygen mask on yourself first, and then before you put it on anybody else, whether you're traveling with a child or whomever. So if you don't take care of yourself first, you'll never be able to take care of anybody else. And so that's why I just encourage people to think about that as they, do what they're trying to do here in Northwest Arkansas. Self-care is very important. Self-care is not selfish. And so I kind of tell this whole story about Acres of Diamonds to remind people to take time to take stock of what you have. You might have talents. You might have a skill set that not everybody else has. Other people want that skill set. You might have land that everybody else doesn't have, and you might want to subdivide some of that land. You might want to figure out a way to make things happen for other people with that land. You may have an idea for a business, but you keep putting it off and putting it off and putting it off, saying, one day I'll do that. Well, that one day, that needs to be today. You might have a desire to go back to school and get some additional education that will help further your career, will help further that business that you ultimately want to start. I mean, there's a million different things. You kind of see what I'm talking about here, right? And you see where I'm going with this conversation. This conversation is meant to encourage you to go out and be the best version of yourself by any means necessary. Not that you're going to hurt anybody, of course, but that you're going to be the best version of yourself, because the world is waiting with eager expectation for this. So I just wanted to encourage you today, and I'm going to wrap it up here. This is the 200th episode of the I Am Northwest Arkansas podcast, and I wanted to share a story with you that has really rung true for me, because Northwest Arkansas has become my own Acres of Diamonds. And yes, I have a physical backyard, but in my mind, I have a backyard of diamonds that I have amassed by virtue of the relationships that I've built with people like yourselves. Those of you that are listening to this that I personally know, you are one of my diamonds. And if you don't believe it, just come talk to me and I'll share why I believe that is the case. But seriously, though, we are the relationships that we have. And I'm constantly looking for new connections, new opportunities to speak life to somebody, to encourage them on their journey, as I'm encouraged on my journey. There's so many people out there, and I could go on and on to talk about all the people that I really appreciate. But I'll just say a few, because I've mentioned these people's names in the past, and I'll mention them again. But certainly there are a lot of people that I've watched their fruit, and I'm always blessed by seeing how successful they've been, both in word and in deed. One person that comes to mind right off the bat is Nate Walls. Just an amazing individual, somebody that I'm just thankful that I'm in his orbit, because he has such a big heart and he really cares about the community. And that fuels me as an individual. I thank Ben Clark for being a very good friend. You know, sometimes a true friend is somebody that you don't have to remind that they are a friend. You just know. And you don't always have to talk to them, but when you do, you connect, and it's a powerful connection. But I'm thankful for Ben Clark. I'm thankful for Henry Ho, just another amazing individual that has introduced me to so many great people. And he just has a heart of gold. And I can't forget my man, Mark Zweig. Again, Mark is the reason why I'm here. He's the reason why you're absolutely listening to this podcast right now. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be doing this podcast. I'd probably be doing another podcast, but it wouldn't be I Am Northwest Arkansas, because I probably wouldn't be living in Northwest Arkansas. And so he's the reason why I came here many years ago. And, I thank him on a regular basis whenever I see him for bringing me to this place that I had only heard about. And I think I told you this story when I was in third grade. Each one of us had to pick a state and do a 3D map. Guess what state I had to choose? Arkansas. That's right. I learned about Arkansas in the third grade, and I think it's kind of prophetic that I'm actually here now. I've brought my family here. I'm raising my boys here, and I'm building a life and a business here. And it's interesting, right? So God has a strange sense of humor, and I'm thankful for that. But the bottom line is that there is so much to see. There's so much to do, and there's so much still to be done here in Northwest Arkansas. And we need everybody, all hands on deck, as the captain would say, to make it happen here in Northwest Arkansas. So I don't know where you are right now listening to this. This might have been an encouraging word for you, but trust me when I say this, everything that you need is right in your backyard. You don't need to go off to far-flung places to find it. It's right in your backyard. And given that I'm speaking tangentially about the backyard of Northwest Arkansas, everything you need is right here. And if it isn't here, you can bring it here. You can create it here. You can manifest it here. So that's all I've got to share on this episode of the podcast. I went a little longer than I thought I would go, but hey, it's the 200th episode. We will be back next week with regularly scheduled programming. But for now, enjoy this episode. Take a minute to marinate on what was said. Listen to it again. And I hope it blesses you the way that it has blessed me. And more importantly, I hope this podcast impacts you the way that it has impacted me for the last 3.5 years, 200 plus episodes of the I Am Northwest Arkansas podcast. If you had told me back on April 1st of 2019 that I would actually do 200 plus episodes of this podcast, I'd say, I don't know if that's going to be the case. I'll probably do 15 or 20 and call it a day. I just can't stop. Every Monday, we have a brand new episode that comes out, rain or shine. I absolutely love telling the stories here in Northwest Arkansas that matter. And I love encouraging people that want to come here to show them the reasons why they should. And those people that are here to show them the reasons why they should stay and lean in to what's happening here in Northwest Arkansas. But that's all I have for you this week. And I really appreciate each and every one of you. If I didn't mention your name, trust me when I say this, it's not because I don't love you. I do. I wanted to be short and to the point, and I just had a few people that I wanted to mention. And certainly, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my wife, Nicola, who makes it all possible, and my 3 reasons for being on a daily basis, and that would be Joshua, Nathan, and Aiden. My kings, these young men are the apple of my eye, and I'm so thankful to have them in my life. So between them and my wife, Nicola, my queen, that's it. I mean, they make it all worthwhile. And then you move on to all of you folks, everybody that listens to this on a regular basis, everybody that shares this podcast on a regular basis. You guys are the fuel that I need to continue to do what I'm doing here. And you've allowed an older man, I'm not that old, but you've allowed an older man to do some things that he probably never thought I would be doing this at 53 years of age. But I'm thankful for it. And prayerfully, there'll be many more years to come. And I will continue to do this, and I will continue to share this platform with as many people as I can. So That's it. Folks, that's another episode of the I Am Northwest Arkansas podcast. To learn more about us or to read or download the show notes from today's episode, visit IamNorthwestArkansas.com. You can listen to this podcast and sign up for our free newsletter to keep up with us and all things NWA. Sign up today. You can also subscribe to the I Am Northwest Arkansas podcast wherever you listen to it, and please consider rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. Remember, as I said earlier, our podcast comes out every Monday, rain or shine. I'm your host, Randy Wilburn, and we'll see you back here next week for another new episode of the I Am Northwest Arkansas podcast. Peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas. Check us out each and every week, available anywhere that great podcasts can be found. For show notes or more information on becoming a guest, visit IamNorthwestArkansas.com. We'll see you next week on I Am Northwest Arkansas.